Story 1. I went on a cruise once. Just once. It was supposed to be a break, one of those all-inclusive, week-long getaways where you do nothing but eat, drink, and lounge by the pool. I was never really a cruise guy, but my friends talked me into it. You need to unwind, they said. Disconnect for a bit. Looking back, I wish I had never stepped foot on that ship. The first couple of days were fine. The usual tourist stuff. Buffets, overpriced cocktails, forced small talk with strangers. It wasn't until the third night that things got strange. I was on my balcony, just staring at the ocean. It was late, way past midnight, and everything was quiet except for the waves. There was no land in sight, just black water stretching in every direction. That's when I saw it. Another ship. Way off in the distance. No lights, no movement. Just a dark shape cutting through the water. I figured it was another cruise liner, maybe one that just hadn't turned on its lights yet. But the more I watched, the more something felt off. It was moving parallel to us, perfectly in sync, like a shadow. I leaned over the railing, trying to get a better look, but it was just there, silent, unlit. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe I was just tired, but when I mentioned it the next morning at breakfast, no one else had seen anything. Not my friends, not the couple in the room next to me. No one. That night, I looked again. It was still there. Same spot, same distance, moving at the same speed. I told myself it had to be a coincidence, some weird trick of the light, but deep down, I didn't believe that. I tried to shake it off, went back inside, forced myself to sleep. But I woke up around 3 a.m., uneasy. The room was dark, but I could hear something, the faintest sound of water lapping against metal. I stepped outside. It was closer. Still no lights, no signs of life, just this massive blackened hull gliding through the waves beside us. It looked old, like something that had been drifting for decades untouched. And for the first time, I noticed something else. My reflection in the glass door behind me. Except I wasn't standing there alone. I turned so fast I nearly lost my balance. Nothing, just my empty room behind me. My heart was pounding, and I told myself I was just imagining things. I needed sleep. I needed to stop staring at that damn ship. The next day I tried to put it out of my mind. I stayed off my balcony, stuck to crowded areas, but something was wrong. The crew seemed tense. The usual friendly, over-the-top customer service felt forced, like they were distracted. At one point, I overheard a crew member talking in low voices near the stairwell. Something about a pattern, about passengers seeing things. I wasn't the only one. That night, I made the mistake of looking again. It was even closer now. I could make out details, rusted railings, shattered windows. Lifeboats missing from their slots. It looked abandoned, except for the silhouettes. They stood along the deck, just barely visible in the dark. Dozens of them, motionless, facing me. I don't remember going back inside. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up to the ship's PA system crackling to life. An emergency drill, but it wasn't scheduled. I knew that because I'd checked the itinerary 100 times. Desperate to keep myself occupied, something was wrong. The crew moved fast, guiding people to the main deck, keeping their voices calm but firm. My friends grumbled, half asleep, but I could see it in the staff's eyes. This wasn't a drill. I looked out over the water, but the other ship was gone. The cruise continued as if nothing had happened. No one talked about that night. The rest of the trip passed in a blur of staged entertainment and forced relaxation. But on the last night, as we neared the port, I dared to check one more time. Nothing but open ocean. And then, just as I turned away, I caught a glimpse of movement in the water. A hand, just beneath the surface, sinking out of sight. I never went on another cruise again. Story 2. I've never liked the idea of being in the middle of the ocean. Too much open space. Too many things below you that you can't see. But my wife wanted to go on a cruise for our anniversary, and I wasn't about to be the guy who ruined the trip before it even started. The ship was massive, practically a floating city. Restaurants, theaters, a casino, even a water park. It was easy to forget we were in the middle of nowhere. For the first few nights, I actually started to relax. The food was good, the drinks were strong, and the view was endless. Peaceful even, until I met the woman in the hallway. It was late, maybe 1 a.m. I had gone to grab a snack from one of the all-night cafes while my wife slept. The hallways were empty, just that low hum of the ship's engine underneath everything. But as I turned the corner toward my cabin, I saw her. She was standing in front of a door a few rooms down from mine, staring at the handle like she was trying to decide whether to open it. Her hair was damp, sticking to the sides of her face. She was barefoot, wearing one of those complimentary white robes the ship provided. I almost ignored her, but something about the way she was standing felt off, like she wasn't supposed to be there. You okay?" I asked. She turned her head just slightly, but didn't answer. I glanced down the hallway, half expecting someone else to step out of their room, maybe looking for her. But there was no one, just the quiet hum of the ship. "You lost?" I tried again. She turned a little more this time, just enough for me to see her face properly. And that's when I noticed her robe was soaking wet. Not damp, not sweaty, soaked, like she had just climbed out of a pool fully clothed. Water dripped onto the carpet beneath her, pooling around her feet. I took a step back. That's when she finally spoke. "They let me in," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost thoughtful. "They said it would be okay." The hairs on my arms stood up. I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there, waiting for her to do something else. But she didn't. She just kept looking at the door, like she was waiting for someone to open it. I backed away slowly, made it to my cabin, and locked the door behind me. I stood there for a while, just listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no knocking, nothing. I told my wife about it the next morning. She figured the woman had too much to drink. Maybe fell into one of the pools, or got caught in the rain. But it hadn't rained. And if she'd fallen into the pool, wouldn't someone have helped her? Wouldn't security have stepped in? I decided to check with guest services. I didn't want to get anyone in trouble, but I figured they should know in case she needed help. When I described her, the guy at the desk frowned like he recognized the description but wasn't sure why. He said he'd look into it. That night, I was walking back to my cabin when I saw her again. Same spot. Same door. Still dripping wet. This time, she turned to look at me immediately, like she'd been waiting. And even though I couldn't explain why, I knew that she wasn't just some drunk passenger. The lights in the hallway flickered for half a second. When they came back, she was closer. I bolted, got inside my room, locked the door, and didn't leave until morning. We docked the next day. As we were leaving, I heard a crew member talking to a supervisor near the gangway. Found the door open again last night. Always the same one. I didn't stick around to hear the rest. My wife is already talking about booking another cruise next year. I don't think I'll be joining her. Story 3. I took a cruise last summer. It was a last-minute thing. Found a good deal. Figured why not? A week on the ocean. No responsibilities. Just eating, drinking, and staring at the water. Sounded perfect. It was a smaller ship. Not one of those mega cruisers with malls and roller coasters. More old school, with dark wood interiors and long, narrow hallways that always felt a little too quiet. At first, it was nice. Less crowded, more personal. But by the second night, something didn't sit right. It started with the knocking. I was lying in bed half asleep when I heard it. 3 slow knocks. Not at my door, but somewhere close. I figured someone had the wrong room, but then it happened again. 3 knocks, then another 3. Always slow, always evenly spaced. I got up, cracked my door open, and looked down the hallway. Nothing, just dim lighting, and that weird hush that always settles over a ship late at night. I shut the door, locked it, and went back to bed. The next morning at breakfast, I overheard a couple talking at the table next to me. It happened again last night. The woman was saying 3 knocks. Always 3. Her husband looked tired. You're imagining it, but she wasn't. I heard it too. That night, I listened for it. It came around 2 a.m. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 more. It was closer this time. I didn't open the door. By the 4th night, I wasn't the only one noticing. People whispered about it near the pool, in the lounges. Some laughed it off. Others looked uneasy. I asked one of the bartenders about it, trying to sound casual. He didn't laugh. "Don't open your door," was all he said. I wanted to press him, but he walked off to serve someone else. That night, I sat on my bed, waiting. The knocks came later this time. 3. Then silence. Then 3 more. Then the handle on my door turned. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Just stared as the handle twitched once, twice, then stopped twitching. My heart was pounding so hard I thought whoever, whatever, was out there would hear it. I barely slept. The next morning, I was one of the first in line at guest services. I told them about the knocks, about the door handle. The woman at the desk just gave me a tired smile. "We get reports like that sometimes," she said. "Always on this route." That was not the answer I wanted. On the last night, I couldn't help myself. When the knocking came closer than ever, I went to the door, pressed my ear against it. No breathing, no footsteps, just silence. Then, in the gap beneath the door, I saw a shadow. I backed away so fast, I tripped over my suitcase. By the time I scrambled up, the shadow was gone. No more knocks, just that awful, endless silence. When we docked the next morning, I practically ran off the ship. As I was waiting for my luggage, I saw the couple from the dining hall. The woman caught my eye, hesitated, then said, "Did you hear it again last night?" I nodded. She swallowed hard. "We checked. The room they always knock at? It's empty. Has been all trip."